Welcome back to Coin Crusader, your daily source for XRP truth, market data, and the moves the mainstream media won't cover until it's too late. What you're about to hear isn't speculation. It isn't hype. It's a collection of confirmed, documented developments that paint a very clear picture of where XRP and the Ripple ecosystem are headed, and why the biggest financial institutions on the planet are quietly building on the very technology they once dismissed. So stay with me all the way through, because there's one story in this video involving JP Morgan, Mastercard, and a trade that cleared in under 5 seconds. And once you hear it, the rest of this will make perfect sense. You've seen the price predictions, $100, $1,000, $10,000, or more. And if you've been holding XRP through all of it, you've probably asked yourself at least once, when does the switch finally flip? When does XRP get its moment? And here's the honest answer. Most people asking that question don't realize we're still navigating a bear market. The conditions aren't fully in place yet, but the smart money, the investors who actually understand market cycles, they're not sweating the timeline. They're watching what's being built underneath the price action. And what's being built right now is extraordinary. In this video, I'm going to lay out the key confirmed developments for Ripple and the XRP Ledger. Developments that aren't just setting Ripple up as a legacy financial company, but are positioning XRP to become one of the most valuable assets in the digital economy. And on top of that, I'm going to show you the top ways to actually put your XRP and your other altcoins to work, so you're not stuck white-knuckling through every pump and dump cycle, wondering why good news sends the price up for 2 days and then right back down again. Because that's the pattern, isn't it? Trump makes a headline-grabbing move, XRP jumps, retail gets excited, and then it sells off. And you're left scratching your head. That's market maker manipulation. That's not the real story. The real story is the infrastructure. The real story is what Ripple is actually building, who is plugging into it, and why those partnerships keep stacking up even while the broader market is bleeding. On this channel, we don't chase noise. We track data. We surface facts. And we give you the information you need to make your own educated, informed decisions. So let's start at the top, because the biggest development right now isn't just the Mastercard headline, even though that headline alone would be massive on its own. Ripple just launched the XRP Ledger AI Starter Kit. This is a full developer toolkit that lets builders create AI-powered applications directly on the XRP Ledger. Everything from wallet creation to agent-to-agent transactions using XRP and Ripple stablecoin. In plain terms, what that means is that AI applications can now execute financial transactions entirely on their own, without a human being in the loop. No one pressing a button, no one approving each step. The AI handles it. That's the layer Ripple is building, and Mastercard is already connecting to it through something called Agent Pay. This is Mastercard's launch for AI agents handling business payments, with settlements running through the XRP Ledger using RLUSD, Ripple's dollar-backed stablecoin. That's not a test. That's not a pilot. That's a live product, and one of the most recognized payment networks in the world just plugged into XRP infrastructure to power it. Before we go any further, quick but important disclaimer. I'm not your financial advisor. I don't know your personal situation, your risk tolerance, or your financial goals. Everything in these videos is purely data and analysis shared for educational and informational purposes only. Always do your own research and consult a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decision. Now, back to the developments. Because while Mastercard is building on the AI side, Ripple also just expanded its partnership with Bitso, one of the largest crypto exchanges in Latin America. Together, they launched a Mexican peso-backed stablecoin directly on the XRP Ledger. Think about the significance of that for a moment. The US-Mexico corridor is one of the largest remittance markets on the entire planet. Billions of dollars flow through it every single year, and historically, that process has been painfully slow, expensive, and locked to traditional banking hours. Correspondent banking rails shut down on weekends. Transfers can take days. Fees eat into the money people are sending home to their families. Now picture that same corridor running on XRP infrastructure. A regulated peso stablecoin, live on the ledger, settling in seconds, around the clock, for a fraction of what the legacy system charges. That's not a concept. That's what's happening right now. And it raises an obvious question. Why XRP? Out of every blockchain available, why do companies like Mastercard and Bitso keep coming back to the same ledger? A former U.S. Treasury official who now sits on Ripple's board answered that question directly on camera. She said XRP serves a function. It facilitates cross-border payments. It's not an arbitrary store of value. It's not tied to speculation. This is what legitimate financial institutions use, specifically for cross-border settlements. What used to take days and cost dollars now takes seconds and costs cents. That's her words. And that's exactly why these partnerships keep stacking one after another. Now here's where the history gets really interesting, because there's a nickname the crypto community gave XRP years ago. They called it the banker's coin. It was meant as an insult. It was meant to imply that XRP was too centralized, too corporate, too comfortable with the traditional financial system. But listen to what the founder of Flare had to say about that recently. He pointed out that when XRP started out, it was mocked for being the banker's coin. And now, every single project in the industry is desperately trying to become the banker's coin. He called it pathetic. And honestly, he's right. Years of mockery, years of the crypto community treating that label like something to be ashamed of. And now Mastercard is settling on it. Bitso is issuing stablecoins on it. The entire industry is chasing what Ripple has been quietly building toward for over a decade. If you've been holding XRP long enough to remember when that nickname was meant as an attack, you already know what the rest of the market is just starting to figure out. Now let's talk about the demand side, because the on-chain data and the institutional flows are telling a story that most retail investors are completely ignoring right now. XRP ETFs have outpaced Bitcoin and Ethereum in weekly inflows for 5 consecutive weeks. While Bitcoin funds are seeing hundreds of millions in outflows, money literally leaving, XRP keeps posting positive numbers week after week. That's not noise. That's persistent, sustained institutional demand happening in the middle of a bear market. And on the supply side, XRP reserves on Binance just dropped to a 4-month low, around 2.69 billion tokens. Holders are pulling coins off exchanges and moving them into cold storage. So you've got ETF money flowing in on one end and exchange supply shrinking on the other. Those two forces building simultaneously while prices are still depressed, that's a setup. And most people are too busy staring at red candles to notice it. The people who are walking away from crypto right now, a lot of them were never positioned for what's actually being built. They came in chasing price action. They're leaving because of price action. They were never watching the infrastructure. And honestly, that's fine, because the ones who stay, the ones who are actually paying attention to what's stacking up underneath the market, are going to be in a very different position when the next cycle kicks in. Now let me show you something that connects everything, because there's one development in particular that I think is the most powerful piece of this entire story, and it involves someone you wouldn't expect. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, has been one of crypto's loudest critics for years. He's called Bitcoin a pet rock. He's called the entire industry a Ponzi scheme. He's dismissed it publicly, repeatedly, for over a decade. And his reasoning? Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse addressed it directly on Fox Business. He pointed out that JP Morgan generates $20 billion in revenue and over $5 billion in profit from their payments business. Dimon isn't anti-crypto because he's ignorant. He's anti-crypto because he's protecting a payments moat that's been generating billions for his company without real competition. Until now. Because here's what happened while Dimon was busy calling crypto a Ponzi scheme. JP Morgan connected its $3 trillion settlement platform to a public blockchain. They ran a cross-border redemption of a tokenized U.S. Treasury fund alongside Mastercard, Ondo, and Ripple. And the on-chain leg of that trade? It cleared on the XRP Ledger in under 5 seconds, outside of normal banking hours. The same trade through correspondent banks would have taken 1 to 3 days. This took 5 seconds. And it's the first time JP Morgan's private rails connected to a live public chain for a real-world asset redemption. So, Jamie Dimon calls crypto a Ponzi scheme. His own company clears a trade on the XRP Ledger in under 5 seconds. Let that sit for a second. That's not irony. That's the market telling you exactly where this is going. Bitcoin solved one problem brilliantly. It became digital gold, a store of value, a hedge against inflation, a decentralized asset that no government can shut down. But Bitcoin never solved payments. The gap between digital gold and a functioning global payment rail stayed wide open for years. XRP was designed specifically to fill that gap, and now JP Morgan, Mastercard, and Bitso aren't choosing XRP because of hype or community enthusiasm. They're choosing it because it works. It's fast, it's cheap, it's proven in live deployments, and it has regulatory relationships that no other crypto project can match. The technical advantage has been there for years. The difference now is that the institutions have actually arrived to use it, and they're not piloting, they're deploying. And this isn't just a US story. SBI Group in Japan is planning a Bitcoin and XRP ETF listed directly on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, with a target of $32 billion in assets under management within 3 years. Japan's financial regulator is already reviewing crypto as a formal financial instrument, not a speculative novelty. And if you listen to Ripple's VP of Markets speak about Japan specifically, the picture gets even clearer. Japan has had a low or negative interest rate environment for decades. Japanese retail investors are among the most sophisticated and active in the world. In fact, Japan is the largest retail foreign exchange market on the planet. Those investors are looking for digital, real-time access to alternative assets. They're looking for stablecoin products, and SBI is building the on-ramp directly through the Tokyo Stock Exchange. Japan and Korea together represent one of the most significant waves of incoming XRP demand that the broader market simply isn't accounting for right now. But it's coming, and the regulatory tailwind in the United States is real too. The chairman of the Senate Banking Committee recently stated on camera that digital assets are part of the future of finance, and that every major industry, including banks, will want to be a part of it. He was clear that the job of Congress is to set the rules of the road, protect consumers, make it less expensive to do business in America, and enable 24/7 financial access. He said blockchain and digital assets allow us to get there faster. Not maybe, not eventually, it's coming, period. Those are the words of the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee. Not a crypto influencer, not a blockchain evangelist. A sitting U.S. senator who chairs one of the most powerful financial oversight committees in the country. So let's bring it all together and make sure you're not missing the full scope of what's happening. Mastercard is building AI-powered transactions on the XRP Ledger. Bitso launched a peso stablecoin targeting one of the world's largest remittance corridors, and it's live. JP Morgan, the bank whose CEO has spent a decade calling crypto a Ponzi scheme, just cleared a real-world asset trade on the XRP Ledger in under 5 seconds. SBI Group is launching a joint Bitcoin and XRP ETF in Japan, targeting $32 billion in assets. XRP ETFs are outpacing Bitcoin and Ethereum in weekly inflows for 5 straight weeks. Exchange supply is hitting multi-month lows, and the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee said it plainly, it's coming, period. They called it the banker's coin. They mocked the vision. They treated the label like an insult. And now the biggest financial institutions in the world are quietly, systematically deploying on the very infrastructure they once laughed at. The switch isn't flipped yet, but the wiring is almost done. If you want to stay ahead of what's coming for the next bull run, make sure you hit subscribe right now because we track this market every single day. The ETF flows, exchange supply shifts, and partnership announcements before they hit the headlines. The link to our 2026 Great Reset briefing is in the description below this video. Follow us on Instagram @BullRunners for daily breakdowns. The link to our official account is in the description as well. And if you're ready to stop piecing this together one YouTube video at a time and want access to our private intelligence network where we track these signals early, there's a free training video in the description that walks you through exactly how we do it. As always, I'll see you on the next one. I'll see you at the top. You know what to do. Stay bullish.